Tua must step up if the Dolphins are finally going to beat the Buffalo Bills. That and more on today's Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready. Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome in to the new Locked On NFL, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with the help of our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today by Michelle Majuk, Locked On NFL expert. On today's episode, we are going to talk about some 0-1 teams that must bounce back in week 2. The Colts and Packers play each other, both needing a win. The Ravens and the Bengals both need to turn things around. But first, we're going to talk about this Thursday night football matchup between the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. And boy, the Bills have dominated the Miami Dolphins as of late. Before we get into it, I do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen of the day and for being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Make sure that you tune in later and step into the barbershop with Tony Wiggins as he hosts the second edition of Locked On NFL. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, and it's Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network. So check out your favorite team's Crossover Thursday episode, but Crossover Thursday is presented by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL, all lowercase, to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Michelle, we just talked about it before we came on. The Miami Dolphins have lost 4 straight times against the Buffalo Bills. 11 out of their last 12 games, the Bills have won. Do you think that the Dolphins are in a position here to get off the schneid and finally get a big win against the Bills?
It all comes down to if they can ever stop Josh Allen. I mean, Allen averages 333 offensive yards per game against the Dolphins in his career. That's most by any player versus any opponent since 1950. So, yeah, he destroys them. He's also has thrown multiple passing touchdowns in all 13 career games against the Dolphins. That's the longest streak at any point in a player's career versus one team in NFL history. Like Josh Allen owns the Miami Dolphins. So if they want to be able to beat him, they got to stop Josh Allen.
100%, man. That is why I call you the data queen. That is historic dominance from Josh Allen. And our guy, Kyle Krabs at Locked On Dolphins, talked about kind of a hidden matchup in this game as well.
I want to believe, and there's a lot of dynamics about this team that I think Thursday's a winnable game, but y'all have to go out and do it, because Buffalo has found all the ways to win all the games, and that includes games that you were leading in the fourth quarter. That includes games that you looked unstoppable in the first half. That includes games where they jumped on you early and just never let off the gas. But he was also asked about Saron Neal and Jordan Poyer and any potential value that they can bring having been in that locker room. And obviously the other side of that is Mike White, who had an interesting, I guess, somewhat conflicting responses to both of those things. As far as what Jordan Poyer and Saron Neal can do to help Tua this week, Tua said they know in the back-end signals what the Bills do and how they communicate things and what they've done to stop us in previous years. And then just kind of the philosophy of that defense with what they try to accomplish against our offense, uniquely different than a lot of teams they would play against. So it could take a lot of the information that I've been given from those guys early in the week and apply it to Thursday.
Okay, listen. A lot of this is going to be about Tua. Tua's got to step up and make plays. He's got to match Josh Allen's greatness. If Josh Allen is great against the Dolphins all the time, then Tua has to match that. But I think deeper than that, the Dolphins have to run the ball on the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are a team that likes to play in nickel. They don't want to play in their base. Miami is a team that wants to run the ball. They use 2 tight ends quite a bit. I think that's going to be a big part of this game. And Joe Marino from Locked On Bills talked about exactly that.
It's all about the front. You've got to win matchups. You have to create disruption. You have to fit the run. You have to get your hands up in throwing lanes. you have to be able to get quick pressure on Tua Tagovailoa. If the Bills are going to have a chance on defense, this defensive line has to eat. Rousseau, Miller, Oliver, Jones, Epinesa, Austin Johnson, everyone's going to have to play great football. And you have matchups that you can win. And so this front being disruptive is monumental, especially because Miami is going to challenge you with, like I mentioned, 2 backs, multiple tight ends, and the Bills are not going to play heavy personnel on defense. They're not going to play 3 linebackers. They're not going to do that. If anything, they're going to play dime. They're going to bring in an extra safety. We know that. We've learned that about this team.
And I mean, it makes sense why they would do that with the speed that the Dolphins have. I think I would rather let the Dolphins have a little bit more room in the ground game than let the Dolphins be able to create explosive plays in the secondary by not having enough speed on the field. But considering that, Michelle, you're 1-0 on the year in your Thursday predictions. What do you think is going to happen in this game, and who do you think comes out on top?
I'm giving it to the Bills because until the Dolphins show that they can stop Allen, and I understand Jordan Poyer might be able to give him some help there on the defense and give him, but like the defense or the offense is different this year with Joe Brady, without Stephon Diggs, without Gabe Davis. So how much does Poyer really know going into this? And then also the fact, the Dolphins can try to run, but Raheem Mostert's out for this game.
Mm-hmm.
Devin Achane is questionable with a banged up ankle. So they're going to lean on Jeff Wilson Jr. Maybe the rookie Jalen Wright actually is active this week. So the one game that Tua has beat the Bills in his career was that week 3, 2022 game where it was over 100 degrees that day in Miami. And they always put those away teams on that bench. And they had so much exhaustion on that Bills. Like guys were leaving with cramps and exhaustion. That's not going to happen on Thursday Night Football. The high for the day's 90 is supposed to be down to 80. I'm calling the Bills to win this pretty easily.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, there are reviews on the show, people mad about me not believing in Tua, but at the end of the day, I believe in Josh Allen way more. The history of success is there. Got to go with the Bills in this one. But again, that inner matchup of this game, we focus on the quarterbacks, and rightly so. But that inner matchup of the run game and the personnel battle on offense and defense, how the Bills adjust to the 2 tight end sets of the Dolphins. Are the Dolphins going to be able, because the great equalizer is running the football. If the Dolphins can run the ball with a ton of success, it's going to be too hard to stop play action. It's going to be too hard to stop the passing attack. So I think that is the great equalizer for the Dolphins. But ultimately, I trust Josh Allen and then the Bills defensive front, like Joe broke down. I trust them to get it done. So I'll go with the Bills as well. But those are 2 teams that are both 1-0. Now we need to look at some teams that are 0-1 that must bounce back in week 2. And one of the matchups we're going to talk about, the teams actually play each other. So that is some interesting stuff. Do also, again, want to remind you to check out Tony Wiggins in the barbershop for the afternoon edition of Locked On NFL, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. Look, DoorDash is my favorite. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I just ordered DoorDash before this podcast. So you could say that today's edition of Locked On NFL is powered by DoorDash. All right. It doesn't matter what you need, whether it be a good meal, whether it be retail items, whether it be groceries, you can get it all on DoorDash. Game day, I got my new series, Game Day Snacks, going on over on my show. You need to get your game day snacks from DoorDash. Use the promo code LOCKEDFALL24. You're going to get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. Limited time offer. Terms apply. Promo is not valid for orders containing alcohol. It's DoorDash, your door to game day greatness. Your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to order your game day favorites. Must be 21 plus to order alcohol. Drink responsibly. Alcohol available only in select markets. Also, today's episode is brought to you by Hims. Men, when we leave the house, it's phone, wallet, keys, and how's my hair look? But if you're experiencing hair loss, you may not be so confident when you step outside your door. It's time to get that confidence back and restore your hair with Hims. Hims provides access to a range of hair loss treatments that work, all from the comfort of your couch. They offer personalized chewable, oral, spray, and serum treatment options so you can find what works best for you. Start your online free visit today at hims.com/LockedOnNFL. That's HIMS.com/LockedOnNFL for your personalized hair loss treatment options. HIMS.com/LockedOnNFL. Results vary based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil. Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety info. All right, Michelle. It's time to talk about some teams that need to bounce back because there are some good teams sitting at 0-1 who cannot afford to go to 0-2. Before we get into it, thanks again for making Locked On NFL your first listen. Check out Tony Wiggins, Locked On NFL in the afternoon in the barbershop later on today. But the first team we're going to talk about here is in the AFC North. And there are two teams in the AFC North, really, that I think need to bounce back to accomplish what they could accomplish this year. And the first team is the Baltimore Ravens. And the Ravens took a good loss, let's call it a good loss, to the Kansas City Chiefs in the opening night of the season. They get a 10-day rest, and now they come back out, and it's time to get a big win against a beatable opponent. Kevin Ostreicher from Locked On Ravens talks about that.
Right. September losses don't matter in September, but they matter in December. Because, you're 0-1, you're 0-2, you can bounce back from that. But once you get to December, we know how big conference record can be. We know how big division record can be, how overall record can be. So those losses can come back to haunt you. And so for a Raiders team that struggled against the rushing game against Los Angeles, former friends, former Ravens, J.K. Dobbins doing his thing. Gus Edwards not as good of a game, but J.K. did his thing. You have to be able to establish the run early in this game because as much as we talked about, oh, you know what? We feel fine after that Chiefs loss. It was a good loss. If the Ravens don't go out there and make a statement in week 2, and it's kind of like that ugly win that we've seen them have against bad teams, well, we would sit here and we'd say, man, that was a bad win. Like for as much as we're like, oh, that was a good loss against Kansas City, a 19-17 win against the Raiders, we're sitting here and saying that was a bad win.
I'm with Kevin. Look, they're playing the Raiders. The Ravens should win that game, no doubt about it. I'm expecting them to win, but the way that they win is important because if you look ahead for the Ravens, their next 3 games, on the road, Dallas Cowboys, at home against the Buffalo Bills, then on the road against the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals had their own struggles in week 1, but the Bengals and Ravens always have tough games. So you have 3 of what could be some of the best teams in the NFL on your schedule after the Raiders. The Ravens cannot afford to lose a game to the Raiders and drop to 0-2. Am I overreacting to that, or do you see it the way that I see it there?
I mean, it's never a good thing, and it never feels comfortable to drop to 0-2. And obviously, if they don't look great against the Raiders, they should be smashing them. Then we're concerned. I'm not concerned after week 1, though. I thought they played a really solid game. They just unfortunately had to be the team that played against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And they're right there of I know they weren't even going to try for overtime. They're going to try for the 2-point conversion, and we'll see if they were right there, though, of getting that chance for that 2-point conversion to win. It was the toe of Isaiah Likely. So I'm not too worried about it. Also, Lamar Jackson has not lost consecutive games since 2021 in weeks 13 and 14. It's been almost 3 years now. Like, he just doesn't lose games in the regular season very often. They need to get Derrick Henry more involved, though. He did not get enough carries last week, and that's kind of Derrick Henry's, role, I guess, over the last few years is when his team's down, he kind of gets taken off the team or off the field more often. When they're up, he's on the field. But let him cook this week. Just Derrick Henry, and also get Mark Andrews involved. He was like a ghost last week.
Absolutely. I fully agree on the Derrick Henry thing. John Harbaugh said earlier this week, we didn't bring Derrick Henry in here to get 30 touches a game. Well, then why did you pay him $9 million for this season? Like, that to me screams, I don't really understand who Derrick Henry is as a player. And as someone who's covered Derrick Henry throughout basically the entirety of his career in the NFL, that is the only way you're going to get max value out of Henry. He's a guy who wears on defenses, starts to break them down, and then hits a few big ones at the end of the game to really blow things up for you. So if you're only going to use him, if they're going to use him like they use Gus Edwards, then why did you pay Derrick Henry? Why didn't you just pay Gus Edwards half the price to do that? And so this is a game where they should be leading against the Raiders, who I don't think are going to be a very good team this year. They should be able to run it down their throats. This should be a week where they focus on getting Derrick Henry comfortable, showing Derrick Henry how much they want to involve him. That's what I would do this week. So I think you're 100% right. Again, the data queen strikes again. The Ravens do not lose 2 games in a row in the regular season, and they're going to do it on the back of Derrick Henry, not Lamar. And after Lamar Jackson took a beating last week, they said he's skinnier. He was running into people, taking shots. Giving it to Derrick Henry not only gets Henry going, but it helps protect Lamar Jackson from himself in a long season. But moving it forward to the Cincinnati Bengals. I blew up on the Bengals earlier this week for what I think is a bad locker room culture at this point because people aren't getting their money and they're starting to be selfish about it. But regardless of that, this is still a very, very talented team. And the Bengals got to find a way to come out and win. And our guys at Locked On Bengals discussed just that.
But as far as like Joe Burrow's reps, I'm not sure what you could have done. Because after those joint practices, I know he mentioned playing in the preseason. He got so many reps during those practices, and that does matter, and those are valuable. And so how many reps do you need? Like, if that's the issue, how many more reps do you need? Because you're getting far more in a joint practice against a first-team defense than you ever would in a preseason game.
It could just be a blip, too. So be careful to extrapolate too much from week 1, but the offense, and Max Toscano, who we've had on the show before, has a pretty cool thread kind of highlighting how the offense and Burrow have evolved from week 1, week 2 to the rest of the season. The last few years, he went back and watched the last couple of years of week 1, and there were extenuating circumstances in those years, right? Joe Burrow not practicing for most of training camp with various ailments and injuries. This year, he got those reps, though, which is what you're talking about, James.
Look, this is the week. They play the Washington Commanders on Monday Night Football. The Commanders let Baker Mayfield look like Peyton Manning last week. They don't have much in the back end.
So the Bengals
of that secondary.
actually play the Chiefs. This is a big one this week.
Oh, I misread the schedule? Oh, Lord. Okay. Yep, you're right. But let me just say this then. The week after is the Commanders. The week after is the Panthers. Then they play the Ravens. The week after is the Giants, then the Browns, then the Eagles, then the Raiders. So other than the Eagles and the Ravens, the next 6-7 weeks for the Bengals are terrible teams. I think the Bengals need to get things going that build some confidence against the Kansas City Chiefs. But the Bengals are going to have time to get this right, and they normally get off the slow starts. What I would be more worried about is that the AFC North is good. If the Ravens win this week, they move to 1-1, and they're probably going to keep winning some games. The Steelers are 2-0, and while it was ugly, we know that the Steelers just find a way to win games. So if you're Cincy, you got an easy schedule ahead of you the next few weeks, but you could lose too much ground if you lose some of these games and don't get off to a good enough start. So if I'm the Bengals, you may not win against the Chiefs, but they need to feel some sort of semblance of confidence here. And did you see the video of Joe Burrow with his hand?
I did not.
He couldn't pick up the Gatorade water bottle on the sideline. He had to, when your hands hurt and you can't squeeze, so you kind of got to clench it with your fingers and lift it up and then swish it into your hand. He did that. He was doing this with his people on the audio part are like doing what? But he was like shaking his hand and grabbing his wrist and touching it. So the AFC North is too good for the Bengals to play around this year like they normally do. They need to obviously try to win, but they need to show signs of being the team that we think the Bengals can be against the Chiefs.
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to, right? They just need to look better and stay on the field. They were never on the field in week 1. They had 8 offensive drives. That was the fewest in the NFL. They went 3 and out 50% of the time, most in the NFL. But also, they're just a team that starts slow. They have a 1-10 record in weeks 1 through 2 with Zach Taylor as the head coach.
1-5 was Zach Taylor.
1-10
with Joe Burrow.
Yeah,
well, I'm saying in week 1, 1-5 was Zach Taylor. 1-4 with Joe Burrow. So you're 100% right.
They start slow, but you went through their schedule. Like I think they're going to be okay if they start 0-2, but they need to look better in week 2 against the Chiefs. Make it a competitive game. If you end up losing to Patrick Mahomes, most teams do, right? So it'll be okay, but they have to show more than they did last week.
Again, it's a confidence thing. It's a locker room thing. I have issues with the locker room in Cincinnati, and you drop to 0-2 and you get absolutely smoked by the Chiefs. You lost to maybe one of the worst teams in the NFL at home in an ugly way, and then you get blown up by one of the best teams. It's like, how bad is this team? And the locker room will start to feel those effects. And some of these winnable games that we just went over, they could lose those because the locker room just isn't where it needs to be. Football is the closest sport to the military, like in terms of the barracks and the platoons and having the camaraderie with the guys in the locker room and all that. And if that stuff isn't right, it can ruin teams. So the Bengals really need to be on the lookout for that, and they need to have something that they can feel good about as they go back into the locker room, and a win would obviously do that. But with that being said, there are some other 0-1 teams that play each other in the Green Bay Packers and the Indianapolis Colts, and they're both desperate to get their first win. We'll talk about that. Another reminder, Tony Wiggins, Locked On NFL in the afternoons, Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel. I mean, it is America's #1 sportsbook at the end of the day, but got something a little bit different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. And if you want to spend that $5, I know it's a little bit of home cooking, but the Titans +4 at home against the Jets, I think that's a winnable bet. But that's not it. If that's not enough, be sure to check out FanDuel's Profit Boost in the app and use it for FanDuel's double your winnings for all of Sunday 9:15 pregame money line bets. Profit Boost will be live starting Thursday 9/12 today. View your account page now to learn more about your boost. Make sure that you visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Michelle, we are going to cap off this Thursday edition of Locked On NFL. Again, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, the Madman, here with the data queen herself, Michelle Majuk. Been breaking it down, looking at the Dolphins and Bills on Thursday night, looked at the Ravens and the Bengals who both sit at 0-1. But now I want to have it's crossover Thursday. I want to have like a mini crossover with us here. Looking at the Colts versus the Green Bay Packers. Very, very interesting game here. The Green Bay Packers are going to be without Jordan Love. They're going to be starting Malik Willis. It's very, very interesting. And typically in the past, the Green Bay Packers, if they don't have their quarterback, who was Aaron Rodgers for a long time, if I have to remind anyone, the Packers were screwed without Aaron Rodgers. But my guy, Peter Bukowski at Locked On Packers, thinks this team is in better shape while losing their quarterback.
As the team took off, it was the pieces playing significantly better in addition to Jordan Love. And that, oh wow, all of a sudden Jordan Love looks much better when receivers are actually running routes when and where they're supposed to. And oh my gosh, they have a competent running game all of a sudden. Amazing that the quarterback would look better in those moments. Even with Jordan Love not playing his best last Friday, the Packers were second in week 1 in rushing EPA. Josh Jacobs averaged 8 yards a carry in the second half of that game after he got used to what was going on. The Packers changed their cleats. A lot of them by the second half, the footing was an abomination. We know that. Jaden Reed hits a 33-yarder on a designed touch. They are better equipped because the offense takes the burden off of the quarterback to do absolutely everything.
I talked with Peter Bukowski on Locked On Packers this week about Malik Willis, and that is exactly what the Packers are going to have to do. They have to coordinate a game plan here where they take pressure off of Malik Willis while also feeding into what he does well. Designed runs, play action, little screens, make it easy on Malik Willis. And like Peter's saying, the best way to make it easy on Malik Willis is for the rest of the team to play well and step up and do their thing. Michelle, do you think the Packers can actually get some wins with Malik Willis here?
I think it'll be hard because no matter what, no matter how good the offensive system is, when you go to a guy like Malik Willis, like he's just like one of the worst backup quarterbacks I think you can have in this league. Like
I'm
that's gonna
glad
be
you
tough.
said it. I can't say it.
I will say though, Matt LaFleur does not get enough credit for how good of a play caller he is because
I
Kyle
agree.
Shanahan exists, because Andy Reid exists. Matt LaFleur
Mhm.
doesn't get the credit that's due. Like, he's just so absolutely amazing. The Packers receivers are running wide open all of the time. Actually, last year, no quarterback threw to a wide open guy more often than Jordan Love. Wide open's 5+ yards of separation. And we saw that
Right.
again in week 1. Like, talk about system quarterbacks. Jordan Love is one. You call Brock Purdy one, Tua one. I think Jordan Love might be the biggest one. He got paid big time. But I do also still think the drop off to Malik Willis is significant. So we'll see if he can get it done. As long as they keep Jaden Reed out there, they love to take him off the field for no reason. He's clearly their best playmaker, right? Get the ball
Right.
in the Jaden Reed's hands, whether it be deep or short. He could do it after the catch. Jaden Reed is a baller. Get the ball into his hands, take the ball out of Malik Willis having to do too much, and they'll be just fine.
And one thing that's going to help Malik Willis, and you talk about getting wide receivers open, well, this should be an even easier task for Matt LaFleur because the Indianapolis Colts, who already had one of the worst secondaries in the NFL, lost their number one cornerback, Juju Brents, for the season. My guy Jake Arthur from Locked On Colts broke that down.
Well, we're going to see how capable this Indianapolis Colts secondary really is now that one of their top 3 players is out for the season. What's up, everybody? This is Jake Arthur with Locked On Colts. And some super unfortunate news tonight as Juju Brents is out for the season with a knee injury. He's, of course, a player that's just been plagued by injuries throughout his very young career. Just got drafted last year and has already dealt with a wrist and a hamstring and a quad and a nose and now this knee injury. The very unfortunate truth is the Colts are going to have to move forward now, planning as if he will not be able to be available because, for a year and a half of his 2 years here now, that's kind of been the story. So the Colts did call Chris Lamons up and they're signing Kelvin Joseph to the practice squad. So they are bringing in some reinforcements. We'll have a lot more on this on Locked On Colts, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts.
I mean, did you hear those names? He's saying, this is an abomination. I'll just say this. Obviously, I cover the Tennessee Titans, so I don't want to be overly biased. I picked the Colts to make the playoffs. I am not some hater who just loves the Titans and hates all the other teams. No, I had the Colts making the playoffs. But there is no team in the NFL, in my opinion, Michelle, who is unnecessarily overhyped. Anthony Richardson looked good, but he completed 9 passes. He had some crazy misses as well, but he just makes these big highlight plays that makes everybody drool. People are talking about the Colts as, sneaky Super Bowl contenders before the year and all these things. There is no team in the NFL, I think, less deserving of the hype that they get than the Colts. And if they come out here and lose to Malik Willis and the Packers and drop to 0-2, I don't see how a bunch of people around the NFL can't say, oh, I maybe got this wrong. Oh, I did it again. I hyped this Colts team and they're doing this again. Like, I think there's a clear path here with the injuries in the secondary and the lack of talent in the secondary. And then Matt LaFleur coordinating his offense with Malik Willis. And they're not going to know. The Colts are going to know what the Packers are going to be trying to do. It's going to look totally different, in my opinion, which gives them a little bit of an advantage. The Colts cannot lose this game. They literally cannot lose this game. Do you think I'm right on that track, or do you think they have a little more wiggle room even if they lose?
Oh, no. A team like the Colts that are going to be fighting for a wild card spot, as is, they cannot drop to 0-2 in such a hard conference. And it's because their defense is not going to be good enough to, win them games down the road here either. Their run defense was maybe the worst part, while they still allowed huge chunk plays in the passing game. But Joe Mixon could do whatever he wanted to do against the Colts last week. So that's also something that the Packers could just lean on. Say, okay, we don't have Jordan Love. Malik Willis is a good mobile quarterback, right? Maybe they run with him a bunch. They give it off to Josh Jacobs more this week. Like, it's going to be a hard task for this defense. And I also think on the Colts offensive side of the ball, they need to also lean on the run. We saw what Saquon Barkley did to that Packers defense last week. Lean on the run with Jonathan Taylor more this week with Anthony Richardson. You can get your big chunk plays through the passing game that we know Richardson can get, but this should be a heavy running game on both sides of the ball.
100%. And I just want to point this out too. Jeff Hafley, there was so much hype from Packers fans to finally change defensive coordinators, finally get this guy in here who's going to play aggressive, and they got destroyed by Philly. So if the Colts come out and put up 30 points on this Packers defense, some people in Green Bay are going to be feeling buyer's remorse on Jeff Hafley. But with that being said, that is going to do it for today's edition of Locked On NFL. It's Thursday, folks. Football is back, and Locked On NFL will be back this afternoon with Tony Wiggins, and I'll be back with you on Friday morning to break it all down. Stay safe out there, everybody.
Bye, y'all.